All right, so the best thing you can do to improve your sports photography is practice. You got to stop watching, get out there, shoot more stuff, and just be focused about it. Think about what you're shooting when you're practicing. That's it. See you next time. All right, before you go, it's not just aimlessly stand on the sidelines and take a couple photos. That doesn't count. You got to go have dedicated, focused practice. You got to pick a skill, pick a technique, see some other photo that you want to emulate, and go out and practice that type of photo, or just getting action shots or getting emotion shots or getting reactions. You have to pick one of those skills to practice, because that's the only way you're going to get better. No matter how many times you hear it, I tell it to myself. I get the feeling when I was starting out, I'd watch videos, I'd watch tips, I'd read articles, and I'd be like, I know how to change my shutter speed. I can shoot the Olympics now, right? That's not how it works. You got to go out, you got to dedicate yourself to the craft, and you got to practice. And I'm by no means perfect. I'm not the best photographer out there, but by working for the last 6-7 years on different techniques, different skills, and just practicing and focusing during games for trying to get better images, trying to get better action, making sure I'm telling the story. Now, what's the best way to practice? Because we've already kind of ruled out just kind of showing up to games and just shooting stuff with your camera and not really thinking about anything. That's not going to help you. You're not really going to improve at all. You might get a random good shot here and there when the play happens in front of you, but you're not going to become a better photographer. You're not going to make more money, or you're not going to get more jobs by photographing that way. So that's doing too little, but you can also do too much. So when I was first starting out, I'd see all these photos, I'd see these videos that I'd watch, and I'd be like, okay, I want to get a really wide huddle shot, I want to get some emotion, I want to get some good action, I want to get a flash, I want to try it out when they're being introed, I want to get a slow shutter technique, I want to get a double exposure, I want to get 6 exposures in one, and all that's just running through my brain, and I'd get frustrated after the fact because I wouldn't come away with anything good because I'm trying to get everything. So you can't try to get everything. You can't try to do every technique, every skill that you want in a single game. No one's going to be able to do that, let alone someone who's just starting out. So you need to pick a single skill, single technique, or a single photo that you've seen that you want to try to recreate for the next game that you go to, and just keep it basic, keep it that one thing that you're focusing on. Besides getting some general action and things like that, just one thing to focus on, because the more you do that, the better you're going to be at that skill, technique, or getting those types of photos of slow shutter pans, or just huddle shots, or just getting reactions of players after they spike the volleyball down for a point and they turn around and they're cheering. Focusing on those things is going to help you just make it into muscle memory, and then you don't have to think about it after you shoot 10 volleyball games. You're going to know what to do in those situations. It's just going to be an instinct to capture that image. And then once that's an instinct to capture that reaction photo, you can start moving on to, all right, let me try to get a slow shutter pan of a serve or something like that. And you can start stacking these skills, and they're just in the back of your head so that you know different situations just instinctually, like, oh, this lends itself to a multiple exposure. This lends itself to a great reaction photo when this happens. It's just going to be a natural thing you're doing with the camera. And there's still so many things that I'm working on when I'm going out to shoot that just kind of in the back of my head that I want to improve, or I want to get different types of photos. And again, I'm not trying to do that all at a single game, but I'm like, oh, I kind of have extra time today. Let me go try to get, just a close-up portrait of a player warming up or something. Find some good light or cool light or a new angle when I have that little bit of extra time. And those things are just in the back of my head where I'm like, oh, this is a good situation for this type of photo or this technique. Because when you first start out, you're like, oh, let me do a multiple exposure today. And then you're like running around trying to do a bunch of different things, and a lot of them don't work. But you find those times where it does work, and then you can kind of recreate that more easily, more quickly in the next games, the next year, the next 5-10 years. You're going to get a lot better at that technique. So again, you want these things to eventually become something that's instinctual. Something that you're not forcing onto the game, but you're kind of accepting the photo. You're like, this is the time where I do this type of photo. or this situation lends itself to a slow shutter pan when it's a 100-meter race and you're on the side and they're running by this way. You're like, oh yeah, this is a great time. And I've practiced this many times, so I know if I go down to 1/30th of a second, it's going to give me a good balance of blur and still sharpness in their face. Again, you just need to practice these things over and over and over again until it just kind of becomes this muscle memory. You know, if you want to shoot manual mode, the best way to do it is to go out and shoot in manual mode. You can't just watch a bunch of videos again and be like, oh, this is how I change the shutter speed, the aperture, it makes it darker, brighter. You got to get out there and you got to test it out and you got to make those mistakes. You got to get some really dark photos or really overexposed photos and realize, oh, whoops, I forgot when I, switched to the other end of the field, now I'm backlit and I have to change that by a stop. So if you're trying to shoot manual, you don't have to shoot the entire game either. Just to shoot one quarter. Just be like, okay, I'm going to shoot manual this quarter. And then that way, if you're making a bunch of mistakes and you're shooting for someone else or just for fun, you're not going to miss as many photos, but you're still going to be learning and improving. And then you can keep doing that another quarter the next game, maybe a half, and then eventually the whole game, and you're going to learn manual much more quickly than just kind of like watching a ton of videos and trying to think about, okay, here's what I need to do in these situations. It becomes ingrained in your brain by just doing it over and over and over again. Like if someone asked me like, oh, how do you change the shutter speed in manual mode? I'd be like, I think it's with my index finger on this dial. I don't remember which way I necessarily need to go right now. But if I have the camera in my hand, I know like, oh yeah, here it is. I'll click this way, it gets brighter, click this way, it gets darker. Because I've done it so many times, it's just like, I'm not even thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, brighter, darker. Oh, aperture change. I've done it so many times, it's just kind of robotic now. Now I know it can get frustrating when you're first starting out and you're not getting the images that you want, that you see other people getting, but it's all part of the progress plan. Okay, you start out, you're terrible. And then you work for a while and you get a little bit better, but you still compare yourself and see other great photos and you're like, I'm still terrible. And then you work a little bit more. And I promise you, if you just work for the next month, the next 6 months, and shoot as many sporting events as you can, and you're dedicating yourself to the practice, you're trying different techniques, you're trying different skills, you're trying different locations, okay, and you look back at those images from 6 months ago, you're going to see this great improvement. And then that's how you just keep going, right? You just keep getting better and better and better and better. It takes a little bit slower the better you get, but that's what's so great about being a beginner too, is that you improve much quicker. So you can see the progress sort of almost in real time when you're doing that much practice. And one of the ways that I was able to sort of quickly improve was shooting ultimate tournaments. So I'd go shoot a Frisbee tournament and you're shooting, 8 hours a day for 2 days in a row or maybe even 4 days in a row. And it's just all you're doing. You're taking thousands of images and you're just practicing. I had quotas I needed to hit of like, okay, I got to get 50 photos of this team from this game and then also shoot this game next to me, but I need to get action and I need to get sideline emotions and cheering from this game. And that was just a great way to sort of be focused on images I needed to get, practicing them and getting them over and over and over multiple days in a row. And by the end of the tournament, you're getting a lot better images even than you were on the first day, especially when you're just starting out. So again, it seems so simple, so easy. It's just practice. That's all it takes. But you got to stop watching, get out there, shoot more stuff, and just be focused about it. Think about what you're shooting when you're practicing. So hope that helps. Hope you got that in practice. And see you next time.